Hello and welcome to episode 45 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Jay, what's going on?
My man, I'm very good. I'm actually really tired. I just got home from Iceland today. So there's nothing better to keep me awake than to talk boots. So that's what we're going to do today, I guess. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I would venture to guess that we maybe have a little bit more ice than you experienced in Iceland, but...
Probably, yeah. They could also just call it Windland because there's a lot of wind.
Yeah, I saw the story you posted on Instagram. It was like almost tornado conditions.
I promise you, these guys are, my camera crew, they're big guys, like big Scandinavian guys, and they almost couldn't walk like in a straight line. They had to, bend forward and stuff, and I was doing no better. I'm just like this small, light guy. That was an experience. It's ridiculously beautiful up there. You get the fjords and the mountains, and it's fantastic and very, very pretty to be there. But the wind makes it difficult. So yeah, some good stuff coming out of it though. So that's the most important thing, I guess. Yeah. But we were suffering. I tell you, we were suffering.
Yeah, being in wind, I don't know if you have the same opinion. I don't mind playing in the rain, but when it's really windy, trying to play is like, it's the worst.
Yeah, and that's just the thing that, when you get then all wet and the wind just comes in, it's brutal. It's unforgiving. So, yeah, that's why I'm tired.
Understandable. Anyways, if you guys support the Boot Nerds podcast, please support this video with a like. That would be fantastic. And if you're not subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast, be sure to do that. Hit the bell notification. There's a new episode every single week. We're a little bit late this week because Jay was in the land of ice, as he just talked about. Also, there is an audio-only version of all the podcast episodes on bootnerds.com. all the podcast streaming services. And of course, as always, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer in an upcoming episode, because we do a Q&A portion in every single one, leave your questions down below and we will potentially answer it.
Exactly. But what do we have for you guys today, Josh?
Well, today, because we are both clearly experts, as we've mentioned several times
Absolutely.
Before, we decided that it would be interesting, and feel free to share all of your opinions along the way, how we would personally fix pretty much every top-end boot that's currently available. Because, I mean, I guess we'll see, because we haven't previously discussed this, but I think there's at least one thing that we would change about pretty much every boot out there right now.
I guess so, yeah. Because when we briefly discussed this before actually starting to shoot, I mentioned, should we draw up like a top 5 list, and then quickly realized, wait, there's actually, I can think of basically every boot from every brand that there would be something that, for my personal taste, I would probably change. So we just decided to go through everything and see, because I mean, if we don't want to change anything, it must mean it's more or less perfect, right?
Mm-hmm. Which I don't think there is one out there that's perfect.
I mean, no, there might be a boot that feels near perfect for you and your preferences, but we're going to try also take a step back and just look at it from a more objective point of view. So that's what's going to happen today. Where do you want to start? That's like the big thing. Of course, we could start with the big boys at Nike, but should we do that?
No, let's start with a brand that we've been accused of being maybe a little bit too nice to. And that's Mizuno. I think that's an interesting place to start.
Okay, very interesting. Rebula 3s?
Okay, Rebula 3, personally, I think that the idea of what they've done with the tongue and the liner is a good idea. How it kind of attaches to the liner and it creates this one-piece effect without actually being one piece. But if I have to be honest, I think that, and I hate to say that I would want a knitted component to a pair of football boots, but I think if they just created a knitted tongue kind of area, I would like the boots that much more. And they'd certainly be a little bit easier to put on. I just find that the way that they did that tongue, it makes the opening kind of a little bit tighter than it should be. And it ends up, at least for me, because I am slightly flat-footed, I get a little bit of a pinching sensation for the first several wears on the arch of my foot because it doesn't allow just that little bit of expansion that I need because of the way they did that tongue.
It's interesting that you get like this pinching sensation, because I was going to say that for me, even with, you know, the fact that the tongue kind of has these wings that go all the way down under your foot, basically, for me, that's perfect because it does give you a bit of a tighter fit in the Rebula. And I do have a very slim foot, so I enjoy that, especially because the boot is a little wide in itself. But I completely agree. If there's something I would change on this, it probably would be the tongue that was the first thing. And I don't know if this is on purpose, but it just kind of feels like Mizuno wanted to create something that wasn't a knit tongue, because everyone seems to be doing that, and maybe they just thought, nah, we're gonna make it work without and go our own way. But if you know, knit is available, I know Mizuno hasn't done any knit yet, but you know, it must be available to them, and they must know how to make it, right? So I guess it would just, I agree with what you say, it would make the boot feel better. And now that the leather is so soft, the fit is so amazing, and you basically get this slipper-like sensation, why not just take it the last step up and go full on bonkers comfort?
I agree with you. I mean, having a boot as comfortable as possible, like I'd probably add a little bit of padding to the heel liner, to be honest. I think having it so thin is not necessarily the best for everyone. Not to say that it's uncomfortable, because it actually fits. I was a little bit worried, honestly, when I first held the boots in hand, seeing how thin the heel liner was, because there's just not a lot of extra padding, but they got the shape pretty much bang on. I still think a little bit more padding would have been nice. And I guess if we're just throwing out criticisms here, this is more of a personal request rather than something that I think they should improve. But honestly, I kind of view this as like what the Wave Ignitus should have evolved into before they tried to do this whole synthetic thing. So putting some Wave Ignitus striking elements of some sort on that boot, I think would be really cool.
That would then be something I think I'd complain about, because for me that would maybe ruin the, you know, the softness, and which is one of the things that's so unique about the Rebula, you know, the softness and the plushness of the leather. And on the heel, I know what you're saying, but I actually like that it doesn't feel as clumsy. I'm afraid that if they put too much padding or more padding in there, it would feel a little bit more bulky. And as you know, I'm not super into the slightly more. Tell me, what did you say last time again about the Future? It had reasonable volume or something like that. Oh yeah.
I can't remember now.
No, it was a very good expression, a very Josh expression.
It was
like
moderate something.
Yeah. There was a moderately. No, I don't remember. We're gonna have to look up. But I feel that if you put too much padding into the heel, it would be a little bit too
moderately,
a little bit too chunky.
It would be moderately substantial. Yeah. That's what it was.
The most Josh expression ever. Just like very. I like it. Anyway, yeah, I think we both fixed the tongue, right? And then we'd probably have to fight a little bit about what else to do on the Rebula. But it's also difficult because it's a very well-rounded boot. It's hard to be mad at.
Yeah, for sure.
The Neos, on the other hand, Neo 2s, MIJs here. What would you change there?
See, this is a weird one, because my main criticism with Neo 2 is I always found the midfoot to just... I didn't think the synthetic was up to par with the quality of the leather that you got at the front. But then we got the Neo 2 Beta, and that kind of changed my mind on the Neo 2 concept. And then, honestly, like, the Neo 2 Beta is, now that I've tried something like that, is exactly what I would do to the Neo 2 to make it better. Like, I don't know that I would change much off of the Beta. I guess you could do something to try and make it a little bit more responsive, because it does lose out on that versus the regular Neo 2. But otherwise, I think the Beta is a really good improvement on that original model, personally.
For me, it would be fun to see like where we'd land if Mizuno hit like a middle ground in terms of thickness of the leather between the normal Neo 2s and the Betas. Because I don't really, you know, up until this point, up until we got the Betas, I didn't realize that I wanted a thinner kangaroo leather on the Neos. But now that I have tried it, I love it, just as you do. I love the sharp sensation you get on the ball, but I also understand that it might be a little bit too barefoot and there might be too little padding and it might be a bit too raw for some people, if you know what I mean. So to kind of see how they can take the learnings from the beta and then implement them on I would say maybe a potential Rebula 3, as it would probably be. Rebula 3, what am I talking about here? Morelia Neo 3. It's the whole 3 and 2s, and that if they make a Neo 3, I would like to see that happen to to kind of shave even more off potentially in the midfoot, because you are right. What I would change though, I'm so tired today. I drop stuff, I get the names wrong, I'm so sorry. But what I would change is the tooling, because for me, this is the last step towards really being like a big time challenger to the Mercurials, because the reason I love the Mercurial so much is because of the responsiveness and that really, on your toes, snappy sensation that you get when you wear a Mercurial. And while this is a decent tooling, the studs are all right, it's also nothing more than that. It doesn't really elevate me to the next level in terms of feeling fast and on my toes. And if you took like a Mercurial outsole and slapped this on the Morelia Neo 2s, whoa. Like take the Adidas X19 Plus tooling, slap it on this, whoa. Like any other outsole that's just a little bit faster than this, I would really, really want that.
Yeah, I think technology definitely is a driving force in terms of selling football boots now. And I think nothing says technology better than a bladed stud pattern. I think when you have shapes and patterns and a layout that you've never really seen before, that's automatically going to spark some kind of curiosity. And like, I want to try that out, especially in the speed boot category. And it's not to say that the Neo 2 stud pattern is bad, because I think it's actually provides better traction than you might expect based on how it looks.
Fair enough.
But something more technical, something more aggressive, something that fits the concept of that boot a little bit better, I think would go a long way in terms of people being really interested in giving that boot a try.
And also just not necessarily from like a yes, of course, a commercial point of view, selling the boot, telling the story around how this is actually, the innovation driver at Mizuno. That's what the Neo is supposed to be, right? Taking what works on the Morelia and then, take that a level up thanks to modern technology. I just feel like, maybe they're a bit too stuck in the whole we gotta keep it real, OG, Morelia, conical studs. I mean, maybe they just gotta let go a bit more and actually take the considerable amount of innovation and information technology they have available to them from all the other sports out there where they are some of the front runners, and just really put that on the Neo and make the Neo like a driver for that innovation again. Because I feel don't get me wrong, I love the Neos, but because of the lack of innovation on the tooling and also the current Neo 2 it's been there for a while, right? Without changing too much. So I think it's time that we see some sort of radical upgrade to the Neo.
Well, Jay, I think it's fair to say that it's definitely time. Neo 1 came out in like 2010, am I right?
I think you're right, yeah.
So Neo 2 is really not that different. Like, what other football boot that's not a Copa Mundial, like a modern football boot, I guess we should say, has spanned basically 10 years. Like, that's crazy. And the fact that people are still interested in the Neo 2, I think goes a long way in saying how good the boot actually is. But I think your criticism is fair in saying that, yeah, it's inspired by the regular OG Morelia, but maybe there's a little bit too much Morelia left in the boot.
Yeah. And if they keep the Morelia 2 around, well, it's still a light boot. You still get good performance from what it is, which is like a classic heritage leather boot. And I just feel they could do more with the Neo. So I would probably also change the fact that it is a little like stuck, held back by the legacy of the Morelia and the fact that it is called the Morelia. Maybe just call it the Mizuno Neo and just go apeshit, pardon my French. Like, I don't know, but it just feels like there's something holding the Neo back because it deserves to be a more popular boot than it is, because it's a fantastic boot.
Yeah, I just thought of something completely kind of unrelated, but if they're going to call the next one the Morelia Neo 3, they need to do the Neo logo, but then do a 3 instead of an E.
Ooh. Mizuno, if you listen to this and this is going to happen, we'll take 10%. That's only fair. Yeah. Should we cover the betas or are we good with that? Yeah, let's say we're good with that and move on to New Balance.
Yeah, because we're not going to try and say that they should change the Morelia. That's just, don't change that one. Leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Balance. I guess we'll start with Furon because I think that's the one that definitely needs the most improvement. And not to say that it's bad, because I think that's by far their best speed boot that they've put out. But the one thing that I think that boot is definitely lacking is the weight aspect of it. It's not that it's heavy, but it's not as light as it needs to be competitive with all the other options.
And it kind of sucks to say as like a boot nerd that weight is an issue, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if you're fast, you're going to be fast no matter what. And yes, you will feel a little fast as something in your mind, but it just matters to a lot of people. So from a brand perspective, it would be the right decision, I think.
No, Jay, I don't think it matters. I think it matters, period, right? Like the Mercurials had, like the original Vapor came out and it was really light. That's part of the reason why it was so popular. Not just the synthetic aspect, not just the silhouette, but it was significantly lighter than everything else. And then it kind of went through this period, Vapor 4, Vapor 5, Vapor 6, even the Superfly 1 and 2 and 3. The Mercurial got a little bit chunky, right?
And heavy.
Right? And
235 or something like it. And then ridiculous.
What happened? Adidas came out with the F50 Adizero in 2010. Mizuno did the Morelia Neo 2, and they were both significantly lighter than anything Nike was doing, and Nike had to completely change direction, and they kind of saved themselves when they came out with the Vapor 8, right? Because it was significantly lighter again. So I think we'd be lying to ourselves in saying that if the Vapor 13 right now weighed 8 ounces instead of 6 ounces like it does, or
what's
whatever.
That? What's that in grams for
let's say
European J?
We're going to be right around 200 grams now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If it weighed 275 grams, I think that makes a big difference in terms of how, right?
You're right.
You're right. And that a lighter boot's not necessarily going to make you faster, but there's a feel association with having lightweight boots, especially in the speed category. And that's where it matters.
It shouldn't be, I mean, yes, 275, that would probably be too much, but if it weighs 220, and it is, the Predator still feels relatively light. It doesn't feel like a speed boot because of a lot of other factors, but if the Furon got the responsiveness right and actually had an outsole, which is what I would probably change, that felt more aggressive, I wouldn't mind that it's a little bit heavier than other boots, but this is what I lack from I'm seriously messing up the names here today. I call it the Future. I mean the Furon, of course, but that's what I would change on the Furon, that they had a more aggressive stop pattern on that particular boot, because it simply feels like even though the upper is nice and soft and molds incredibly well around the foot compared to some of the earlier models, I just get that lack of bite when I push off that for me is absolutely essential in a speed boot. So I agree with you on weight, but probably I would focus more on the tooling itself and the shape and length of the studs, just for me.
Yeah, I agree.
On the Furon, not the Future, Jay. We should do a count in the editing of how many times I screw up today because I'm completely gone.
Oh, wait till we get to the Nike Phantoms. There's gonna be some. Can't wait. Okay, so Tekela, I think they made a bunch of big steps from Tekela 1 to Tekela 2. It's hugely improved. I still think that the shape could be tweaked. I don't know that it's the closest fitting boot. I think the shape could be a lot more form fitting. It seems to be almost too rounded all the way through, if that makes any sense. Like it's not as contoured as I'd like it to be. And I do feel like the synthetic on the first variation was softer than what we ended up with on the second variation. And that's what I really liked about the first one. Not say the second one is bad, but definitely could be improved there. Other than that, I'm not mad at that boot because it is so unique in terms of what it offers in comparison to everything else.
I think I mostly focus, as you say, on the softness of the upper, and then maybe making it a tad bit slimmer so it doesn't feel as, yes, I have a slim foot, but even looking at it, on people with what looks like normal with feet. When they move, the whole color around the heel looks to leave a big gap. And for me, that whole detached feel from the lower ankle bone, it just makes it feel like the boot isn't moving as well with the foot as it could. So maybe engineering some construction that makes it sit a little tighter around the ankle would potentially work on the Tekela. It's a good boot, but they could tweak it and make it more streamlined, I feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, let's move on to what should we do next? Puma?
Puma?
Let's do Puma. So, brand new Future. I think it's really good.
I agree.
As you guys are watching this video, I'm not sure if my review has been posted yet, but I have tried the boots and I've been very impressed with the changes they've made. I think this is, in terms of overall quality, I don't think it really outperforms any past Futures. I think they've all been pretty similar in terms of overall performance, but from a comfort and touch standpoint, I really feel like this is better than anything they've done to this point with this concept. I have a hard time criticizing the upper. I think that they did kind of lose out a little bit on the whole net fit concept with this one. I just feel like you have less options. I don't agree with heightening the collar on the mid-cut version. The low-cut version, I still think needs a lace hole at the top rather than just having it attached to the outside of the upper. I think that's a goofy thing. Like a lace hole would go a long way in terms of, like you said, having the upper kind of pull away from your foot at the ankle. And the tooling, like, it's good. There's nothing wrong with it, but this is the 5th Future, 6th Future.
Just fix it, Puma. Come on.
Do something a little different.
Yeah. I'm with you on this one, especially on the low cut. I agree on everything you said on the high cut one. I would probably give people more options for net fit, and I would make the boot, as we discussed with the Tekela, I would simply make it less chunky and slimmer because it is a very wide football boot. And despite everything you can do with net fit, for some people it just feels, more clumsy than it perhaps should. And it is so ridiculously wide that even people with wide feet say, whoa, there's a lot of room inside this boot. So maybe they could trim it down a little bit, make it more streamlined, and actually allow net fit to really shine. Because if you get a Future on that would fit your foot perfectly, well, and you have net fit to even, tighten it up even better, lock your foot down even better, that would be some serious next level stuff. I agree that it's touch-wise, at least one of the best 2 Futures we've had. I love the 18.1s, but it's right up there, and it depends on what you want. So I wouldn't really change much, and of course the lace hole was going to be a point I would make as well. I don't understand why they haven't put a lace hole there, because it would help a lot of things.
Yeah, Puma One. This is a boot that you have some close attachment with, at least a line, because you are a Puma One designer to some extent.
I don't know. There was... I'm being a little bit harsh on the one here. I like the boot. I think it's a good all-round boot. I'd probably fix it by killing it. And it sounds a little bit, rough, and it is. But I don't really know where I would take the one, because there's so many things you can do, but it depends on where Puma want to go with it. So if they want to make it a speed boot, I would make it low cut. It's a decent outsole, but I would probably sharpen that up as well. And I would seriously look into, using what they learned on the 5.1 with the whole very, very solid outside of the foot. Learn how they can use that for even better lockdown. That could be one direction to go. But if they want to make it like a modern leather boot, Rebula style, I would take a completely different direction. So I don't really know, there's a lot of stuff potentially that you can fix. You might not need to fix anything if they're completely happy with it because it's a solid boot, but Do you know what I'm getting? Like,
No,
I don't really know where to begin with this one.
Jay, your criticism, I think, is part of the reason why the Puma One is at a point where it's struggling, is that they tried to do something different. Like, what modern football boot marketing has largely turned into is you have categories of football boot where the design and function is marketed very clearly. You have a speed boot for speed. You have a control boot for control. You have a power boot for power. Obviously, none of those boots are going to give you enhanced attributes in those specific categories, but Puma went for this, as the name would suggest, all-in-one concept. And I think people just haven't bought into the concept. They don't understand the concept. And it's almost kind of it's viewed as a confused design, and understandably so, because I look at that Puma One 5.1, as good as the boot actually is. Like, if I was just the average consumer and I did a little bit of research, my impression would be like, wow, there's just way too much going on. There's like 8 different materials on the upper. Why is it cut like a kind of basketball shoe? I've never been a huge fan of the way that it's been cut, to be honest. It's a great pair of football boots, but I think you're right. They need to make a design that's a little bit more clearly focused. And whether that's a Puma One 6.1 or 20.1 or whatever they want to call it, or something else entirely, which I think would probably be a good idea at this point. I don't know. Because I think that's the best Puma One we've had, right? Okay, best model. Maybe not the best colorway, Jay, but I think it's the best model. Do you disagree with that?
From an objective point of view, I think you're right. Yeah. Yes. I personally like, and that's not because of the colorway. I'd actually, disregarding the city pack, I would still probably take the Puma One over this, just because of the vamp, the toe box, how it feels. But you're completely right in what you're saying here. And it's not a bad pair of football boots, but I would probably, if I was to fix the one and make it relevant, I would probably, keep the knit tongue piece, but I would make it low cut and make the shape to look like what Nike have done with the Vapor 13. Because then we would be talking about something that would also look sexy. And if you can't sell the boot on the concept alone and what it is, well, then you have to sell it on the looks. And it's not a bad looking boot. It's not just sexy either.
Yeah, but that's not, you put that on a boot wall, I don't think anyone's going to pick that off as like, oh, that's the best looking one.
Oh, pun intended. Yeah. Was it?
What is the best looking? I didn't even mean that one.
Oh.
Puma King Platinum. I want to call it Finale so bad, but it's Puma King Platinum. This is a boot I have a hard time criticizing. I have to be honest, Jay. I think it looks phenomenal. I think they did something bold in keeping it as simple as they have. The only criticism I think you can make is they would add some kind of a responsiveness structure element through the midfoot. Other than that, I really like what they've done with that boot.
You're right. I want the leather from the 5.1 on this. And then I would change the liner on the heel to make it a little bit more grippy. And then I'd be a happy camper. But so it's not a lot I would change, but I would still change a few things.
Yeah, you're right. The leather could be better. Definitely could.
I mean, it's not bad leather. It could just be soft. And if you take the leather from the 5.1, which is very, very soft, maybe we would be talking about an even better experience there. But then there would be a lack of lockdown. Yes, that could be a problem. We'd have to fix something more. So, yeah. But Adidas.
Adi. Ooh, where do you want to start? Pick your pick.
This one, because I'm kind of scratching my head as of, what are we going to do?
Copa 19 Plus is a pretty easy one for me. I think what they've done with the upper and the way that the boot fits is impressive. Like, it's hard for me to criticize something that has like kind of never been done before, and I don't really know. Like, it's easy for me to say, oh, I wish it was maybe a little bit more responsive and slightly more locked down. But realistically, I don't know how they would actually do that. So I think you kind of have to live with those downsides because of this laceless design. But the outsole and the stud pattern is the easy fix for me. If they just took the speed frame from the X line or even did the split sole from the Nemeziz line, I think the boot would be infinitely better.
I agree. See, this is the thing for me, because personally, I'd love the X tooling, or even the messy Gambit tracks tooling on a pair of Copas, but I just don't know if that would be the general consensus, and if what they want, Adi, what they want with the Copa, if that would be the objectively the best thing. So,
but
personally,
is that the best? Is that the right way of looking at it, though? I understand that Adi might have certain objectives for the boot, but if that's not what the consumer wants, which I think it's fair to say, having a boot that is lighter with a slightly more visually interesting and possibly even better performing stud pattern, that is what the overwhelming majority of consumers want. So why not give them that? You're right.
You're absolutely right. And it would probably be, it would maybe reinvigorate it a little bit, but and it's not the 19 plus anymore, it's the 20 plus now.
20 plus.
Even though it's kind of the same boot. It just has a new texture on the yeah.
I'll be making that mistake for a long time.
Oh yes. Yes, so will I. And that's not just because I'm tired, that's just because it's weird.
All right. Well, speaking of the Copa, what about the 19.1? 20.1?
I would get rid of the burrito style tongue, and then I would probably kind of take the 20 plus, and then add laces. I mean, I know Adi won't do that, but that's the dream for me.
Like just a one piece, do a one piece upper with laces.
Hell, why not? You can also make a standard U throw, but yeah, I just don't like the burrito style tongue on the. You can even well, that would be the same thing, or you can do like on the King, cut out a piece of give a deeper, more flexible knit opening. To kind of allow a bit more freedom of getting into the boot, and then the laces will compensate for the lack of support you get.
Yeah, I personally, I'd like to see central lacing system and a regular tongue, and do something like we used to get with the 11 Pro, something like we used to get with I'm just thinking like Adi Pure 1.
That would also be great.
Like that today. For the Adi brand, I think would do extremely well given the technologies that they've incorporated within that new Copa series.
And still, you're mad at the Rebula 3 for having like a standard tongue and central lacing system.
But it's not a standard tongue. It's
You're right.
It's a tongue that doesn't move. I kind of I know it's annoying to have the tongue slide to the side as you're playing in the boots, and that's not a thing that really exists there's not many football boots that do that anymore. But I don't know. There's a charm to that, and I think that there is definitely a group of consumers that would really appreciate something that is just simple and classic from the Adidas brand. Because there are, as good as the classic Copa Mundial is, there's plenty of people that just want something more modern.
And I think that what they've done to the Copa 20 Plus and the 19 Plus, it could translate well into a more traditional modern leather boot than what they have right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Then Predator,
which
19
brings us
plus.
to the Predator. I mean, I've said this, I don't know how many times, I'd love some rubber elements. I think that I understand not making a leather Predator anymore. Leather boots are not, I don't think the way to, if you're going to have a flagship model, which I think Adidas is more or less trying to make the Predator their flagship product, I don't think making it a leather product in 2019, 2020 is the way to do it. But rubber striking elements absolutely must be a thing on the next Predator, which, based on what we've seen from pros training and other things that we're not allowed to talk about, it looks like something along those lines is happening.
Yes, and that's probably also what I would do, because, I think if the Pred is going to get back on track, we need something Predator-ish, which would be the striking elements. You just got to make sure that they are, just like we talked about on, which was at the Rebula 3, that we don't take away the softness of the upper package, because this is what, for me, really makes the Predator nice, that it is so soft, it is so plush and comfortable. If we can maintain that somehow, then I would love to fix it. But I would just be a little bit hesitant just slapping on big rubber elements on there. That would really hinder the natural motion it has with your foot. But yes, something, we have to get a bit more grip aggressive grip on the Pred. That's really what needs to change for me.
Yeah, I also don't love the outsole. I've never been a huge fan of it. I think it's just, I mean, I think you could argue that the Predator is one of the thinner top-end boots out there, but it has this outsole that's just really, really chunky and I think kind of unnecessary. I'd love to see a return of the classic TRX bladed stud pattern as well that used to be on the Predator series. I think people would love that.
But that would be more chunky.
Adi is so due for a change when it comes to stud patterns. Like, again, we talked about the Neo 2 being the same for basically 10 years. Adi has done the same thing. Since the F50 Adi Zero, pretty much everything has had that stud pattern or a variation of it.
True, yeah. They should take the outsole from the Adi Power Predator and just slap it on the new one.
That would be sweet.
That would work. Okay, Nemeziz. How the hell do you fix this?
At this point, I don't know. I guess my criticism is going to be very similar to your criticism of the Puma One, and that is, I think it's time for it to die. Personally.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with this either. I mean, you can change a lot of things, but I mean, it's not a bad football boot. I just don't really know. I don't know what to do with it that would make me feel, okay, this is now something I really like. And that's slightly problematic for me. But what would you do to, what would you change for you to really love this boot? What would you do, Josh?
Look, the whole laceless concept with the tape bands, I think it's very interesting. And it seems when the concept is explained to you and broken down, it's like, oh, that sounds really good. But then when you actually get to try it, it fits okay. But ultimately, the performance of the boot is not fantastic as far as laceless boots go. I think the lockdown and general responsiveness you get from the other laceless options within the brand is better. I don't know. I mean, they tried to sell everybody on this concept of an agility boot, which had kind of never really been done before. And I think the separation between an agility boot and a speed boot is something people have been confused about. I don't think the marketing behind the Nemeziz has been that strong. I know Messi is obviously wearing it, but he's not wearing the flagship model. He's wearing what a lot of people view as a takedown model, the point ones.
Oh, he's not.
Which is totally not the case. I don't know. I mean, if Messi wearing your Nemeziz model is not getting people excited about the boot at this point, and it's been 3 years now, I think it's time for something new.
It's time to move on. Yeah, that would probably also be what I would say. Move on. That's the best way to fix it.
I think they could also change the Z's to S's.
That would help a lot.
I think that would help in like Google searches.
What would you do with the X19 Plus if you were to improve it?
You know what? I don't hate what they've done with that boot, and I have such a hard time saying what they should improve with a laceless concept because, I mean, I feel like you have to live with the lack of adjustability and the lack of responsiveness when you go laceless, right? And I guess in fairness to Adidas, it seems like every new laceless boot that they come out with, for the most part, I think the Nemeziz is maybe one exception, they seem to be getting a little bit better and a little bit better, right? So, I don't know. I don't think that laceless is the right way of making a speed boot when responsiveness and lockdown is such an important part of what makes a speed boot a speed boot. But I like the material of that upper. Personally, I think the best way to improve that boot would to add a lacing system like the X19.1 has, and it would be better.
I would say make the X99.1 the new X. Give it some more aggressive studs, and we'd be talking. I know that's never gonna happen, but that for me is what I would do. I want more flexibility. I want a softer upper. I know. Then there are other problems to be solved. So if we have to be realistic, I would probably just start off with making the studs more aggressive. That's kind of my only real suggestions to fixing this. But I'd probably just take the learning from the X99.1 and say, okay, people loved it. It worked tremendously well. It had serious F50 vibes. Let's look more into that.
Yeah, that's True. And I think F50 vibes is the key word here, which is kind of what you get for the most part from the X 19.1, which is their most popular boot right now. And again, kind of hard for me to criticize. I think the boot could be a little bit slimmer in general. I think there's too much volume. I still think that the way they've done the lacing system, while it allows for a nice, comfortable fit, I think it could be laid out differently to provide better overall lockdown. And as much as I like the speed mesh, I kind of would love like a hybrid touch upper like we had on the 2014 F50. I think that would be cool to have again too.
And maybe we also just needed to look a little faster, like lower. That's really what makes the X99.1 look so fast to me. That it's lower. It doesn't have the big curve going up. It just makes it look a little. It doesn't look as streamlined and aerodynamic.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I would totally get rid of that long extended piece at the front part of the top part of the tongue. And it, like, no matter what, it just kind of like folds up awkwardly, kind of running up the front of your ankle whenever you wear the boots. That would be, and I've seen actually pros. I know Marcelo for sure. If you look at his boots, it actually has the front part is significantly shorter and lower, so you don't have that extra bit of material there. I don't know why the regular version doesn't have that.
Right. Those, Addy, hope you're listening. Again, 10% is a fair amount, so we'll take it. Moving on to the big boys at Nike. And there's a lot of stuff that I know we'd like to fix. Where should we start? Me or you? You.
Okay, let's start with Phantom Tiempo, I meant. This Tiempo is totally what I meant. Tiempo Legend 8 Elite. We've both been pretty vocal on this in terms of we agree that the boot's good. We agree that the boot might be the best performing Tiempo they've ever put out. And I think the combination of comfort and performance is something that this has done extremely well, but it's very much lacking in the touch and kind of leather department, which is kind of what the whole point of the Tiempo line is, right? So I don't know. I love QuadFit for what it does. I think it's a good technology, but seeing how it feels in combination with leather and how much I think it takes away from the leather experience, I don't know that it should be on a leather boot.
I think I agree with you. And I'd probably take a learning from Mizuno and what they've done to the Rebula, because it's not like rocket science what they've done there, but it's just a slightly more simple version of what Nike have done with the QuadFit mesh. It still gives structure. Maybe not as much structure and lockdown as the QuadFit does, because it does really work pretty well. But it just retains that leather feel more than it does on the Tiempo Legend 8. So I would probably more go that direction. We know Nike have the technology, the money, and the brilliant minds to do this. Obviously, this is a great boot, but that would probably also be what I would look at, how to get that one-to-one leather elegant sensation back into the Tiempo, because they're doing a lot of things right. Component for component, it's a great boot. You just got to get the feel back somehow.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you have to look at it the same way as the speed boots are looked at, like their Mercurial line, right? As little material as possible between your foot and the ball. They're trying to give you that barefoot experience. I think with the Tiempo series, the focus needs to be the star of the show is the leather, and we want you to be able to feel that. So as little as we can possibly do to reinforce the leather but still maintain the feel, that would be great. Because QuadFit, it's very soft, it's very flexible. It's not really adding any stiffness to the shoe, but it's still decently thick at the end of the day, and it does impact feel.
It does. I totally agree with you.
Which brings us to your favorite boot.
Kill it. No, I'm kidding. I've mentioned it a lot of times before. I think, again, the Phantom Vision does a lot of things right. It also does a lot of things that I don't personally like. I think in order to make this work, you gotta get rid of the sock to make it look less chunky on the shelf. Because let's be honest, when you see a boot on the shelf, that first impression means a lot, and it just doesn't look very sexy. So get rid of that. That would look infinitely better, and then somehow find a way to make the whole ghost lacing system, lace cover thing, be more elegant. because I don't think it really works the way it does. I would probably look into like a Phantom Venom sort of execution, where we have a more like a half semi-covering lace cover, because up here it doesn't really matter anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
You know what I think the way they did the lace cover is really good in that it doesn't seem to add much bulk across the top of the foot. It's very streamlined. It fits very close. And we talked about this actually before going on. You look at historically, lace covers have never really been that good. Like I was just thinking of the F50 Tune-It series and how chunky those lace covers were, which we recently saw with that F50 remake.
Yeah.
But I guess credit to those lace covers. What they did offer is consistency in terms of grip and the material you had across the entire foot. And the whole thing about I was about to call it the Magista, the Phantom Vision, is the texture, right? And that's the one thing you don't really get in pictures that you immediately notice in person. It's almost like sandpaper. Like it feels like you could sand some wood with a pair of Visions, right?
And it's great.
And it's good. It's really good. It offers this nice touch on the ball. But then as you get across the top of the foot where the lace cover is, which is a significant chunk of the upper, all of that grip goes away. So if there was a way for them to maintain the lace cover, but also maintain a very consistent grip level and texturing across the entire foot, I think that validates the existence of the lace cover a lot more. It makes more sense for it to be there, other than right now, it's pretty much just a visual element.
Exactly. Yeah, it needs to be a functional part of the boot that where it flows more into the boot than it already does. And then I would also change the way it looks, because I feel it looks a little too much like an American football cleat compared to like a football boot.
Yeah, it's good in some colors, weird in others.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Second Phantom.
The other Phantom, the Venom.
First thing, don't change the name. Two Phantoms is too many.
Yes, thank you. I think I'd also, try and make it a little less Mercurial-y. I'd probably try and, instead of having flying it, I'd probably try and go back to, a mesh upper instead. Because it basically feels like, if you take away the width and the striking elements, there would be a lot of similarities to a Mercurial. Because it has bladed studs, it has a knit forefoot with a good amount of texturing on, and it's a lazy comparison to just call it a Mercurial, a wide Mercurial with striking elements on. But I understand why people would do it. So to make it more distinct, I'd probably change the upper from, well, at least the toe box, to something else. Maybe try to go back to what worked on the Phantom 1.
You know what? I agree. I think it's too... As great a technology as Flyknit is, and as much as it's revolutionized the entire football boot industry, they now have Flyknit on all four models. And I just feel like it's unnecessary. Like, we've talked about this on the podcast before. It looks like the Tiempo series and the Mercurial series are here to stay pretty much forever. Nike's not getting rid of those. And these new two Phantoms are kind of their experimental lines at this point. And you look at the Phantom Venom, it's the successor to what they used to do on the T90 series, and then the T90s were taken over by Hyper Venoms. It's kind of a combination of both of those lines, but you just look at, I know there was drama with how they changed the upper on the Hyper Venoms, but every single model we got something new and interesting, right? And I know the Phantom 3 was ultimately Flyknit as well, but it was something we had never seen before as far as Flyknit uppers go. And then I look at the T90 Laser series, Laser 1, Laser 2, Laser 3, Laser 4, every single one had a different upper that was unique and interesting, better or worse, depending on what your opinion was. I think they need to be a lot more experimental with the Phantom Venoms. And I think that the striking element needs to be emphasized a little bit more. I feel like it should be a little bit more aggressive than it is. I've also heard a lot, I personally, and I've spoken with the designer of the Phantom Venom a few times. The lace cover was something I guess they were very back and forth on, and they ultimately decided to put it there. I don't have a problem with it. I think it fits very nicely on the foot. It doesn't seem to add any extra bulk. Visually, I don't mind it either, but there seems to be a good amount of people, and I don't know if it's just loud people in the internet comment section, but there's a good amount of people that don't seem to like it.
I don't hate it. I don't like it particularly, I wouldn't mind if they took it off. I mean,
Yeah,
I wouldn't care too much. I'm just thinking like either change the name or just make the Phantom one boot. Because we should have, and that takes me to the Mercurial. We should have the Mercurial, that should be the Flyknit boot. Then we should have the Tiempo, that should be the leather boot. And then we should have one other boot, and they could call it whatever they want, that should be some other material, in my opinion. That would really be a strong lineup, because then you have some, because it's too much of the same. But what would you do to the Mercurial right now?
Okay, this is one of those, I think it's tricky to criticize the current Mercurial lineup. First thing, put the ACC logo back. We need that back. It's a huge mistake on their part. I don't know how that got through the cracks and they didn't have that on there, but whatever. Okay, bold criticism here. Keep the Superfly as it is. Don't change a thing. It's perfect. Not perfect, but it's, again, the ACC logo is missing. Take the Vapor and make that synthetic. Make the Vapor and the Superfly different again. I think we can both agree on this.
That was going to be the only thing I would have to say for the Vapor. Make it synthetic. Give us a softer version of the Vapor 11 on the Vapor 13 tooling, and I would be so happy. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I have such a hard time. I know that there's been such a huge focus on knitted materials and knitted technologies, and we've seen legitimate progression up until this point where I think it's safe to say that technologically, what they've done with this new generation of Mercurials is far exceeds any other knitted football boot to exist prior to this.
Absolutely.
But I have a hard time believing that behind the scenes and in other areas, other parts, divisions of Nike, that they're not developing these crazy synthetics that could offer something really unique in a Mercurial form factor, right?
It has to be coming.
I just feel like
it has to be coming.
Right? Like I was more impressed with this new generation of Mercurials than I thought I was going to be, knowing that it was going to be knitted. But I feel like at this point they've done it all. And the next version, like, are we really going to be wowed by another knitted upper? I don't see that happening. I miss the days of, the new Mercurial's coming. What are they going to do now?
Yes.
And a synthetic upper has to be reintroduced for me to have that feeling again. And I think for people to get genuinely excited.
I totally agree with everything you said right there. That was basically going to be my point about the Mercurial. Because I've thought long and hard about it, and we needed to go back to the roots. And yes, you can argue that the Flyknit is now what it is, but that for me would be how to take it up a notch again. They've learned a lot from Flyknit, now executed with synthetic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for something. I know it's going to be 2014 is when the knitted boots thing came. But I think 2020, 2021 is where we could potentially see something really crazy again.
I think we just might. I think because we've kind of been at a standstill, so I think something big is around the corner.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. So I think with those words, I can see for time we're not doing too well in terms of questions. I think we're gonna leave those for next time and just say that there are stuff. There are stuff. Wow, English much. There is a lot of stuff that we can fix, but we should also appreciate, as we've discussed, that boots are good today. But guys, what would you fix on all the current boots? Well, as always, you should let us know in the comment section right down below, where you can also leave your questions, which we're going to do a lot of next time. Of course, also, don't forget to leave a like on the video if you had a good time, and subscribe to the channel if you want to show the boot nerds some love and get podcasts on a weekly basis. You can also go and check out Josh's videos by clicking over there. Check out Unisport's videos right over here. And with that said, I'm J Mike, and I approve this message, and now I'm gonna go and sleep. Bye.
Later.